I'm the R6 lore guy, and at the current point in R6 lore, a character by the name of Phobos is our main villain. He has stepped up ever since Rainbow took custody of Gerald Morris, also known as Deimos, and he does seem to be ranked lower than Deimos, as well as some others in the Keres Legion, because we see him taking orders from a mysterious person via his comms in the most recent comic book, and we know that isn't Deimos because he is currently in Rainbow's custody, so who that person is, we're also still yet to find out. But just like when Deimos was revealed, the big question on a lot of people's mind is who is Phobos? Who is under that mask? So in this video, I'm going to present multiple theories about who Phobos could truly be in R6 lore. Drop a like if you enjoy, comment since it does help the algorithm, and let's get into this. So the first theory could simply be that he's a new character. We've not heard anything from him before. This is our first introduction of him, and he is simply a brand new character. Is that likely? Yeah, it is, but that's not fun for a theory video. So the second theory, which a lot of people think that Phobos may be, is Daniel Bogart. Now, Daniel Bogart is another legacy Rainbow op, just like Gerald and Kudos, with those three specifically being part of a squad together. That is why when Gerald defects from Rainbow, we see the three of them on this mission. There's even a little image in the background of one of the teasers for Operation Twin Shells where we see Gerald, Daniel, and Kudos together. I would love to see a more high-res image of this, like full on. It would actually be very heartbreaking to see, considering how much of a family and a squad they were. So to see that broken apart by Gerald, yeah, that would be a sad thing. Now, when Gerald defected from Rainbow, he done so by killing Daniel and also framing it that he died in this scenario as well, attributing this to the explosives that went off in the facility. The same explosives their team was there to investigate. But what people were led to believe happened there was that the explosives detonated and that Daniel and Gerald were both killed in action, dying for the cause they believe in. But we all know that wasn't the case, and this was all done by Gerald and he survived. And a lot of people have the theory that Phobos is actually Daniel, but I don't really think that's the case. To begin with, why would they have this confrontation between each other if they were actually on the same side and if they were going to fake Daniel's death here? There was no one else to see what was happening here. Kudos was still outside the building and the comms were shut off to her, so it's not like she could tell. And the bomb maker had already been executed by Gerald at this point. There was no one in that room for them to have to deceive or have to fake Daniel's death. If Phobos is Daniel, none of this would have made sense. Then they would have just been doing this play fight with each other and then faking both of their deaths to the audience of no one. If Phobos is Bogart, then this actual interaction between Gerald and Daniel makes absolutely no sense. Fair enough if Kudos was at the scene there and then they were sort of putting on a show and faking it while she was there to lead her into believing a different narrative. But no, I think that Gerald genuinely did kill Daniel and Daniel was killed in cold blood. I don't think he would ever defect from Rainbow, and he was sadly taken out. Right, so the third theory on who Phobos could be is Gabriel Nowak. Gabriel is one of the main characters from Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2, initially being trained under Bishop alongside Logan Keller, but due to some missteps would fail to be promoted the same way which Logan was. Gabe would start to grow a hatred for Bishop, even though Bishop is the reason that Gabe managed to stay in Rainbow despite his mishaps, challenging Six, who at the time was Domingo Chavez, to keep Gabriel on the team. Gabriel would later be placed on the Alpha team, with Logan now being the team's leader. You can stay tuned for my R6 Vegas lore video, which will be coming out in the very, very near future. But long story short, Gabriel would begin to betray Rainbow after feeling like he'd been undermined for many years. Logan was given the promotion and he was not, and he would play a major part in what happened in Vegas. Eventually, both Bishop and Logan catch up with Gabriel, with Bishop being left with no choice but to kill him. Now, just because you kill him doesn't necessarily mean he has to be dead. I think we all understand from a lot of stories in this world that a character can easily be written to survive in one way, shape, or form. There could have been Rainbow operatives who extracted his body, who secretly were also defectors, and they managed to save him, though he may be very scarred. He may have been on the brink of death. You also have to remember Vegas takes place in 2010. Gerald Morris defects from Rainbow in 2012, and he is picked up from what we presume is the Keres Legion during that defection. It wouldn't be crazy to assume that there were already people in the background working here and plotting against Rainbow. There could easily be a scenario where Gabriel wasn't fully killed in this mission, and he was able just to survive another day. I also think that would be an interesting plot point to bring back Bishop and maybe even Logan, with them kind of failing to actually ever stop Gabriel in the end. I honestly would like Phobos to be Gabriel. I think that would be a very fun twist in my opinion, but then you also risk undermining the ending of Vegas 2. But don't get me wrong, as someone who likes the Vegas games, I also wouldn't mind a bit more character development for Gabriel as well. And it could also mean that the defection of Gabriel would be the start maybe even of the Keres Legion. It gave him an opportunity to climb roles, something that he couldn't do at Rainbow. And there's also quite an important part at the end of Vegas 2 when Jung is going through the computer which Gabriel and his men were using, and he found out that Gabriel had basically sold like Rainbow's information, the addresses of these operatives, their families. So yeah, I do feel like that would be a good starting point for the Keres Legion. Like I said, this is 2 years before Gerald would defect himself. I don't know, I possibly think Gabriel surviving at the end of Vegas 2 and becoming Phobos could be an interesting plot point. Now the next theory for who Phobos could be is Jan Bosak. If that name sounds familiar to you, that is because Jan is the father of Ella and Zofia. Now, do I have much evidence that it's Jan? No, not really. But I do think it would be quite cool if Jan was Phobos, because then he has a daughter in Rainbow, Zofia, and a daughter in Nighthaven, Ella. So Jan was a respected commander of the Polish Grom. In 1991, he would resign from his role as a commander to become the Minister of Internal Affairs after Poland's president was assassinated. His legacy would continue on with Ella and Zofia, with Zofia being the evident favorite child, which caused a rift between Ella and Zofia because of this. And Ella would become the more rebellious sister, whereas Zofia would become the favored by the books one. Now, not long after Zofia became pregnant, which wasn't information she shared with her father, he would commit suicide. But it is stated that the circumstances around his suicide were very suspicious. Now, what could be more suspicious than the fact that he didn't kill himself and that he's not dead? All of it could have simply have been a sham, and Jan would go on to work with the Keres Legion. Now, we don't know enough of Jan's character to know why he would do any of this. If they were to make it Jan, they would of course have to flesh out his character more. But I like the idea of Jan maybe coming back in the story and the link to Zofia and Ella through this way. And we even have voice lines in the game which reference Jan as of this season.
Zofia, happy we could talk. I need some clarification. Grom Battle Reports 49Q-C. Your father stormed a...
Hold on. There was a 49QC? Where did you find this?
Okay, so the fifth and final theory for who Phobos could be in Rainbow Six lore is a GSAC member, or specifically Lugh, like one of the theories I've already thrown out, but it doesn't have to necessarily be him. Now, the GSAC is the Global Security Alliance Council which oversees Rainbow. They are the ones who can cut funding, heck, they can even shut down Rainbow if they vote on it. Aurelia Arnault, who was the director of Rainbow before Harry, is currently a part of this council. Now, I already put out a theory that Lugh, someone we know who's on the GSAC from the Operation Collision Point story tab, I put out a theory saying that he may potentially be Phobos, but it doesn't necessarily have to be him. I think it could be anyone who is on the GSAC who is Phobos. Potentially making him a politician who oversees Rainbow would explain how they know so much, but it would also allow them to then act on ways which could politically change Rainbow to benefit the Keres Legion's interest. The reason why I did say I thought it was specifically Lugh is because Lugh is an Irish surname, and in the Assault on Hereford base event where we hear Phobos talking to us, it did sound like he had a twinge of Irish in his voice. Doesn't necessarily mean that that has anything to do with it. They could even change his voice in the future. Deimos' voice actually changed from his first cinematic reveal to a year later when he actually became an operator and we got to learn more about him. His voice actor changed between them, so it could potentially change with Phobos as well. I'm not taking his accent as concrete evidence of who he is. It can definitely add evidence for theories like what I've done with Lugh, but I don't think it necessarily can take away from other theories as well. By all means, if they want to make it Jan, for example, who is Polish, or Gabriel's also Polish as well, they could just tweak the voice actor. They could change it depending on how they want the story to go. I wouldn't take voice acting of a character in a game mode, concrete evidence of who that character ends up being. They could even do something like saying he was using a voice changer or something to conceal his identity, you know? But those are my top 5 theories for who Phobos could be in Rainbow Six lore, with 1 being a new character, 2 being Daniel Bogart, 3 being Gabriel Nowak, number 4 being Jan Bosak, and number 5 being someone from the GSAC. Be sure to let me know your thoughts about these theories in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you are new. Catch you later. I love you all. Stay safe. Have a good one.